When we talk about spiritual empowerment and social justice in America, it's impossible to ignore Abraham Lincoln. He led the country during one of its darkest hours, when brother fought against brother and the very concept of freedom was on trial. Lincoln once said, "Those who would deny freedom for others do not deserve it themselves." And that is spiritual principle. Freedom is non-selective. It is not something we hoard or take away from someone, but rather something we recognize in all others, in one another. In 1863, Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation and claimed that all slaves in the Confederate States were to be freed. Of course, it did not end slavery everywhere, but it did cause a massive shift in the moral direction of the nation and the Civil War. It helped to transform the Civil War from merely a battle over Union into a war over spiritual liberation. It was far from just a political declaration. It was a moral and divine declaration. And then again, at the Gettysburg Address, he stood on blood-soaked ground and war-torn soil and shifted the collective of the United States and the war, and addressed a nation and questioned whether a nation conceived in liberty, dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal and justice for all, would be able to endure. He constantly reminded the country that equality was not a slogan, but it was a promise of being fulfilled. Lincoln was also a symbol of spiritual love and strength. In his second inaugural address, he said, "With malice toward none and charity toward all, let us strive to finish the work that we are in." That is strength rooted in love, and that is spiritual transcendence. That is what true spiritual leadership looks like. Justice without hatred and accountability without cruelty. The dissolvement of divisions in sight of a higher purpose, and a promise to everyone of their equal opportunity for fulfillment. Lincoln showed that the entire nation was able to confront its sin and its wrongdoings and still be able to move forward towards the idea of redemption. He always believed the nation was worth saving because it held within it the idea and the potential and the possibility of freedom for all. Spiritual empowerment and social justice is about aligning systems with truth and love. There are few examples that are better than Abraham Lincoln. He understood that peace without justice was hollow, and also that justice without humanity is vengeance and not worthy of retribution. Above all, he reminds us that a love of a country and a love of a land and of a life includes all people. So today, when we continue the fight for equality, dignity, and unity, we live in a land that was shaped by the ones who came before us. We stand in their legacy in a position that was shaped in part by their bravery and divine principle and ability to never give up in sight of the greater goal for all people. How will we choose to rise to meet the divine moral moment and the repetition of history, of the pattern that shows itself once again?